Welcome back to Team Turner Solutions. In case you don't make it to the end of the video, I am asking in advance that if you like this content, before you click out of the video, then please like, share, and subscribe. At this point, just subscribe. You don't even have to like it or share it. We're going over an argumentative essay today. I'm going to try to keep it brief but informative, okay? I want this to be a one-stop shop. I want you to walk away from here knowing exactly how to write an argumentative essay. The purpose of an argumentative paper is to choose a topic, take a stance, either for or against, and give supported reasons for why you feel that way. Generally, an argumentative paper consists of 5 parts: an introduction to give background with a nestled thesis to highlight your main claim or point to prove. Next, the original argument, which is where you support the claim of your thesis, followed by a counterargument in which you will present the position of people who would disagree with your original claim, which results in the refutation of a counterargument, which is where you should negate the counterargument to show why your position is more accurate. Some refutations may consist of a concession during which you will present alternate considerations. Lastly, there'll be the conclusion where you summarize the overall argument. If you feel like you got everything you needed from that 45-second clip, then before you go, please remember to subscribe. But if you would like a more in-depth breakdown of each section, then stay tuned. First up is the introduction. In the introduction, you'll be presenting the topic to the reader. This section is important because it sets the scene for the rest of the essay by providing the necessary context the reader needs to understand your position in the argument. In the introduction, you want to include some background information. You want to present the topic, talk about the issue or problems associated with the topic. You want to explain why the topic matters. You can give a quick history of the topic, how long the issue has been around and how it has changed and developed over time, who is mostly impacted by the issue surrounding the topic. You could give some of the consequences of the issues related to the topic. But as I always say, be sure to refer to your assignment instructions because some argumentative papers might be a little longer and they want a separate section with background information, and some might follow the same structure. So what I'm giving you here is a general guideline, but you should always pay attention to your assignment instructions for any specific nuances outlined by your professor. I know I said the introduction was important, but the thesis is probably a little bit more important. The thesis should be the last sentence of the introduction. The thesis statement is where you make the claim of what your main point is. The point that you plan to prove, your position, that is what you list in the thesis statement. In an argumentative essay, the thesis should be formulated as topic plus opinion plus reason. The topic is, of course, your focal point. The opinion is your position on the topic, and then the reasons are why you hold that position. It goes without saying you have to have at least one reason, but the standard amount of reasons is 3. Having more than one reason can help supplement your argument, therefore making it stronger. Now let's look at an example. Language barriers can affect access to healthcare because, and as you come up with some of the reasons, you'll think about what are the issues that language barriers can cause: limited providers proficient in the language, miscommunications, misdiagnosis, lack of understanding in treatments, inability to consent, etc. The language barrier, the existence of a language barrier, is the topic. Language barriers in healthcare, that's the topic. Can affect access to is the opinion. So I feel that the topic, language barriers, can have this effect on the topic. And then the reasons are in purple. Moving on to the body paragraphs, okay? We are almost done. The thesis and body paragraphs have to match in terms of content and order. That means that whatever you have listed as the first reason in your thesis should be the first body paragraph. Whatever you have listed as the second reason in your thesis should be the second body paragraph. Whatever you have listed as the third reason in your thesis should be the topic of the third body paragraph. If we look back at the example, we'll see that access to limited providers should be body paragraph 1. Miscommunication or misdiagnosis, I kind of bunched those together, will be body paragraph 2. And lack of understanding in treatment and symptoms would be body paragraph 3. Inability to consent could squeeze in there too. Generally, you want to stick to one topic per paragraph. However, there will be some situations where you might not have enough information for either topic, but they are closely enough related that you you can discuss them in the same paragraph, such as miscommunications and misdiagnoses, because one leads to the next, or lack of understanding in treatment or symptoms and inability to consent, because one leads to the next. Now that we've covered the relationship between the thesis and the body paragraphs, let's get into the content of the body paragraphs. A strong body paragraph will have a topic sentence, evidence, an analysis or linking sentence, and a transition. The topic sentence is the first sentence of the paragraph, and it should make a claim about how the reason from your thesis relates to the topic. Looking back at the example I gave earlier, here's a sample topic sentence. Having a limited availability of providers proficient in foreign languages overlooks the care of underrepresented populations and puts extra strain on multilingual doctors. I have the thesis in the corner there, so you can see how the first prong of my thesis, the first reason, is that there are limited providers proficient in the language, and that's one way that a language barrier can affect access to healthcare, and I reiterate that idea in the topic sentence. After the topic sentence should be the evidence, and of course the evidence comes from the sources. Now I'm not going to read that paragraph. You can pause the video and read it if you want to. I'm just showing you how your evidence should be related to the topic sentence, and be sure to add citations. Check out my APA series linked in the cards if you have any questions about using APA to cite your sources, and subscribe so you can be notified when the MLA series comes out. If you want a video about researching and how to read scholarly journals, peer-reviewed journals, then let me know in the comments so I know it's something y'all want to do and I don't do it. Nobody watches that. After supporting the claim of your topic sentence with evidence, you close everything out with an analysis or linking sentence. The analysis or linking sentence gives, I said what I said, okay? You're connecting the dots. And here is an example. Due to the discrepancy between languages spoken by physicians versus those spoken by prospective patients, accompanied by the admission of prospective patients who say they avoid healthcare due to language barriers, it's evident that language barriers in healthcare overlooks populations and can place undue burden on multilingual physicians. So you're kind of just a little bit repeating the topic sentence and adding some sprinkle from the evidence. The transition sentence is the last sentence of the paragraph. It does what it says, which is moves from one idea to the next. Here's an example. Not only can language barriers decrease the likelihood of certain populations reaching out for medical care, but in instances when they do connect with a medical professional, the language barrier limits the chances for a successful visit. I close out the idea of there being limited healthcare providers available. And now I'm opening the idea of the miscommunications and misdiagnoses or the lack of understanding in treatments, etc. That's how you transition. Somebody said, "Oh, are we done yet?" Girl, trust me, I feel the same way. Up next, we have the counter argument. You have to think ahead a little bit for the counter argument because you're anticipating what the people who disagree with you might say. So what might their critiques be? And that's in red because anyone who disagrees with me is a red flag. Just kidding. But so for my example, now when you do your counter argument, you have the option of picking your broadest counter argument for the overall broad issue, or you could do a counter argument for each of the prongs in your thesis. They might not be long, but you can still hit a counter argument for each point. And sometimes that might be a better way to do it because you'll make sure that you take as many counter arguments as possible, but you don't want the counter argument section to just be overwhelming. So you can kind of refer to your assignment instructions and trust your gut. For my example of people who don't go to the doctor because of the language barrier, for my first prong, they might argue that they have in-office translators, they have translating apps, or that the potential patient could take a family member to the doctor's office with them. Directly after the counter argument should be the refutation of the counter argument. And this is where you either explain why your position is more valid or concede to the naysayer's perspective. Now me, I'm never going to concede. I can always explain my way. Yeah. But here's an example. For the counter argument that they have in-office translators, well, a question might be the reliability of the translator. How often have you or someone you know maybe stretched some of your qualifications in order to get a job? Or what if the person is uncomfortable with the third party being in the room? And this could also lead to privacy concerns. Yes, HIPAA is a thing, but is the in-office translator as bound as the doctor? They have translating apps. For the second counter argument that they have translated apps, as a multilingual, I can tell you those apps They don't. The apps can easily lead to confusion. The translating apps don't be translated correctly. And for the idea that they could take a family member with them, it leads to the same concerns as the in-office translator. Privacy, they could feel uncomfortable, and reliability. Just because they are family members and they speak the same language doesn't mean that the person who also speaks English is, especially when its children are as well versed in the native language. Or the person might not be well versed in English. So there's always the chance still of a miscommunication. We are on the last section, y'all, which is the conclusion. As you're writing the conclusion, you'll feel like you're being repetitive, and you are, because a person should be able to read your conclusion and have an idea of what the overall essay was about without having to read the actual essay. So with that being said, the conclusion should include a restatement of the thesis, a summary of the most important points used to support the thesis, so that will be your 3 reasons, and a reiteration of the most prominent counter-argument and refutation, as well as potentially a final thought related to the implications of the overall topic. What do you think people should do with the information you just gave them? If you made it to the end of this video, leave the shouting emoji in the comments. We appreciate it. If you think there was something that I could have done better, then leave that in the comments. If you appreciate the video, if you feel like you learned something, leave that in the comments. We just need feedback to know whether you feel like these videos are actually helping you. Please like, share, and subscribe. Oh yeah, please just subscribe. If liking and sharing is too much, just subscribe. And we'll catch you in the next one. Okay, thanks. Bye.